Oh, welcome to the NHL show on the Sauter on Sports Podcast Network. I'm Marc Sauter. Good to be back. Been a little bit, I don't know, last week, sometime. Lots and lots has happened since then. That there are two teams left. Unfortunately, feels like there are two teams left as far as in the conference finals. There are three teams left. Feels like there's going to be two relatively soon. Unfortunately, I hope we get more hockey. I've said on this platform as well as others that I have been pretty disappointed with the lack of drama, with the lack of hockey, really. What, two game sevens, both of them involving the Montreal Canadiens. Um, I mean, yeah, there's lots to say about that. And I keep on debating, like, how often do I want to regurgitate uh this playoff format stuff? But it's just it's frustrating to me. And it's the same thing with all the Mitch Marner, talk. It's those are two topics where I still have so much more to say, but it's like how often do I really need to talk about this? Or not even do I need to, do I want to? Like, yeah, people are interested. Sure, it gets views and clicks or whatever, but it just feels dirty now. It's like I have to talk about this because this is the topic du jour or whatever. But I don't know. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining me, whether you're joining me live on X, YouTube, or on Spotify. Appreciate you joining me. Before we move on too much, remind everybody that this show is brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now, promo code SPORTS10, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire First Round Collectibles store. Anytime they have a sale, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what sales they have on right now. I got to check it out. But they do have sales fairly regularly. And when that does happen, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. So go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Promo code SPORTS10 for 10% off your order. And Total Apex Sports, Total Apex Media. We're not live on Total Apex Sports on X today, but shout out to them. They are doing some great stuff over there, whether it's your regular sporting news, sports betting, fantasy, DFS, whatever it is, hockey, football, basketball, baseball, cricket, soccer, World Cup coming up, tennis, golf, F1. They have you covered when it comes to anything. Total Apex Sports and Total Apex Media. So before we get going, I don't have a ton to say about this. I am of the vintage that I remember the back half of the career of Claude Lemieux. I remember his reputation. I remember he was one of those classic players. And being a Leafs kid, uh, in the early 2000s, to compare him, I'm not comparing their game. I'm just that type of player like Darcy Tucker, where you hate him if he's not on your team, and you love him if he is on your team. And that was the definition of Claude Lemieux. Everywhere he went in the beginning, I guess the first chunk of his career, he won. Right, with Montreal, he won. New Jersey, he won. Colorado, he won. 4 cups in total. Never knew the man, obviously. By all accounts, he was a great guy. By all accounts, he was a great teammate. I just remember him as a hockey player, and just the ultimate playoff performer, right? We see these guys not just in hockey, but we see these guys who are good regular season players, but when the playoffs start, when the lights are the brightest, something just comes alive in them. And that was Claude Lemieux. Very sad. Since the announcing of his passing, multiple reports coming out that it was suicide. And that sucks, man. And it's sad. And thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends, of course. And what you're seeing a lot right now on X, what you're seeing a lot right now on social media, and rightfully so, is this plea to reach out if you're going through something, if you're going through mental illness, and that's where this conversation's going. And I would couple that with anything, whether it's suicidal thoughts, whether it's addiction, depression, whatever it is that you're battling. Talk to somebody. It can be a helpline. It can be a therapist. It can be someone that you trust, a friend. It doesn't it, anybody, as somebody who, if you know me well, you know a lot of the battles that I've gone through, and continue to go through, quite frankly, and maybe one day, I'll talk about that more, on here. But um, it's so important to get help. It's never too late, and I know that's way easier said than done. There's a real truth to it where, um if you've gone through that type of darkness, whether it's suicidal thoughts, whether it's addiction, um there's a part of the reality that you're one of the lucky ones that actually found the strength to go get help, that you're one of the lucky ones who actually was able to find your way out of that darkness, because that's not everyone's reality, and it's a sad reality. But yeah, definitely RIP, um to Claude Lemieux, absolute legend on the ice. And again, by all accounts, an absolute legend off the ice. And sad news today. And yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to his friends and his family. All right. What I don't know really where to start with this. I think with, Vegas, just to kind of recap, I guess, Vegas 4-0 sweep the Colorado Avalanche, score. Mark Stone, of course, scores within the first 5 minutes of that game the other night. And that was basically all they needed. They scored the empty net goal at the end. I think it was, or maybe it wasn't an empty net. No, it wasn't an empty net goal. But regardless, they score that goal at the end. Colorado scores to make it 2-1. But basically, 1-0 was all that this team needed. And what's funny about that is that's kind of the way that whole series has gone. Like what's impressive to me, and what's funny is I'm hearing a lot of people say, I'm not shocked that Vegas won, but I am shocked that it's a sweep. And I just got to say, I am shocked that Vegas won. I am. Whether it's in 6 games, 4 games, 7 games, anything other than Colorado winning this series, I am shocked. And I was going to be shocked. That's just the truth. Colorado's the better team. They're the deeper team. They have been the more disciplined team, at least as far as the playoffs go. And the fact of the matter is, getting that 1-0 lead on that Mark Stone goal, that was all they needed. And it wasn't just all they needed based on how the rest of the game played out, but based on how that series played out as a whole. Vegas gave Colorado nothing. Nothing in the neutral zone, nothing in transition, nothing in the offensive zone, nothing on the power play, like nothing. Nothing. And what I find very curious about this is like the conversation about, well, Nathan MacKinnon was hurt and Cale Makar was hurt. And this happens in the playoffs every series for as long as the NHL has been the NHL. There's always injuries, right? And there's always little asterisks. Like, I think that for the most part, people say, well, injuries aren't an excuse because everyone has injuries. And I think a lot of times, actually, injuries are an excuse. For the Dallas Stars specifically, I think it's a legitimate excuse. Half that team should have been on the IR. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when half of your team should not be playing, that feels like a pretty significant excuse, right? However, when it comes to Vegas and Colorado, I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. I guess I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. It's what I think. I don't think it would have mattered watching how Vegas played Colorado. I don't I don't know if it mattered. Now they knew, especially the first two games, Cale Makar wasn't playing. They knew how to expose that. When he came back, they knew that he wasn't 100%. They knew how to expose that. Um, I don't think it would have mattered if he was healthy or not. And I don't think it would have mattered. Nathan MacKinnon got hurt in game 3. I don't think it would have mattered for him in games 3 or 4 either. I don't. Now, clearly, if they were healthy, then it the series would have been closer. Maybe it's 6 games, maybe it's 7 games. But so obviously, I'm not saying that if they were healthy, it would have been a sweep. I know that's ridiculous. I think Vegas wins. Now that this series is over, right? I think Vegas wins this series no matter who's hurt, no matter who's healthy. Obviously, you lose Cale Makar, you lose Nathan MacKinnon, you gain Mark Stone. Obviously, getting like that affects the series, and that is why it was a sweep. But I think Vegas wins this series regardless. Watching the way that they played Colorado, they knew how to beat Colorado. And I said this here. I said this on a series preview for the hockeywriters.com. I've said this on my socials. I've said this before that Vegas, they were the best version of themselves coming out of round 2. This was the best that they have played. This is the best that we've seen from Vegas all season long. And now that mattered. I still thought that Colorado was the best team. I'll be honest, like, I don't know anyone. I didn't see anyone pick Vegas to win this series. Nobody, including me. Including people that I've done shows with and whatever. I don't know anybody who picked Vegas to win this series. And so for them to do it in a sweep, regardless, like, MacKinnon and Makar are clearly two of the best players in the NHL, right? I think that that's a pretty consensus. MacKinnon, Makar, David, Draisaitl, and then the list goes on, right? That feels, or it's around that. Um, so clearly them being hurt matters. But the way in which Vegas shut them down, like, that's still a very deep hockey team. A very deep hockey team. one of the deepest left. I would say the deepest team left in the Final Four, Colorado Avalanche. And what's funny is on the hockeywriters.com on YouTube, we did a series preview. Zach Martin, who's been on this show talking Carolina Hurricanes, he was helping cover the Colorado Avalanche. I was on there representing the Vegas Golden Knights. And, he talked about how the depth for Colorado really needs to step up. And the depth for Colorado is really going to have to prove themselves. And we got lit up in the chat, like lit up. The chat was ripping us apart for this, 17 players have multiple goals and blah, 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 ripping us apart like this is the deepest team in the NHL. How could you say that their depth, blah, blah, blah. And, in fairness, I have a speech impediment and stutter, and that was popping up its ugly head from time to time, and the chat wasn't too nice to me for stuff like that. I get it. Guess what, everybody? Colorado scored 7 goals. 7. And you know what was non-existent? Their depth. Or anybody for that matter. I'll be honest, I don't even know who. Maybe it was their depth that scored, and the big guys, I don't know. But that's a very good hockey team, regardless of who's hurt or in or out. Clearly, McKinnon and McCarr, they're important. But I think that is disrespectful to the meticulous way that Vegas took apart that hockey team. Because they did. They took apart the Colorado Avalanche piece by piece. And it started in game 1. And in game 3, obviously to say that comeback, you knew that they were going to win the series. I mean, that win put them up 3-0. So obviously you knew that. But that right there, that moment, first period, Colorado, they're down 2-0. They're fighting for their life. They're the President's Trophy winner, best team in the National Hockey League all season long. They put a 3 spot on you in the first period. And before the second period was over, the game was tied. And I think that is that moment where you realize, okay, this is for real. Like, they let their guard down for the first period. And that was the only time all series that they let their guard down. That was it. It was that first period. And Carter Hart has been phenomenal. I actually wrote a piece today about just and I'm going to talk about this in a couple minutes, just the evolution of the Vegas Golden Knights, right? 924 save percentage, 2.22 goals against. He's been phenomenal. And there were moments throughout the series where one goal here, one goal there, and maybe the momentum flips. Maybe the narratives flip. Maybe the series flips. And Carter Hart was there to make sure that never happened. And so props go out to him. I'm not diminishing anything he's done. However, defensively, I just cannot help but be so impressed with how the Avalanche, or how Vegas, just systematically dismantled Colorado. And I'll say it again. I think that the series, that Vegas is in the Stanley Cup final, regardless of who's hurt or not hurt. Clearly, if McKinnon and McCarr are healthy, Vegas does not sweep them. I think that's a fair thing to say. However, I think that Vegas wins this series either way. I'm just so impressed with how they approach this series. I'm so impressed with how they have just really come into their own and become the best version of themselves at the right time. And I'm very, very curious to see how this um how this lines up for them going into the Stanley Cup final. And this kind of brings me to, again, I wrote about this today, thehockeywriters.com. Check it out. A little shameless self promotion there. What is interesting about this and why I find this Vegas team so fascinating, and the hockeywriters.com, very nice of them to let me jump on this bandwagon. Of course, I cover the Dallas Stars. They were eliminated. I cover the Maple Leafs. They didn't make it. And so they let me jump on the Vegas Golden Knights. And here we are. So that's been great being able to cover this team for the last 2 rounds and heading into the Cup final. And what makes this run for Vegas so fascinating to me is just the fact of like when they won the Stanley Cup in 2023, they were supposed to win the Stanley Cup. They were the best team, if as I recall, in the Western Conference throughout. When they played Florida at that point in time, Florida was banged up. They weren't healthy, but even if they were, Vegas was just better than Florida was. And Vegas was always going to win that series. Just like when Washington played Vegas all those years before, Washington was always going to win that series. It was the same when Vegas played Florida. Vegas was going to win that series. When Colorado played Tampa, Colorado was always going to win that series. When Florida played the Oilers, in my opinion, both times the Panthers were always going to win that series. And I know that Oilers fans might disagree with me on that, but I think in both occasions, especially last year, but I think in both situations, the Panthers were the better team, the more well-rounded team, the more trustworthy team, and they were always going to win that series. And what I mean by that is just through the season and through the playoffs, they were just always going to win. It just felt like this is the team. Vegas is not that this year. And that goes way back into October, all the way through the regular season and even through the postseason. This is not that. There has been an evolution, a trajectory to how this team has gotten to where they are and where their game is at right now that I just find really fascinating. Like all season long, the conversation was this team is too talented, too skilled, too experienced to be playing the way they are right now. This is just not, it does not make sense. Aiden Hill, very underwhelming season. Schmid in the pipes, between the pipes, very underwhelming season from him, although I don't know how much you really expect from him. When Bruce Cassidy was fired, March 29th, when he was fired, the Golden Knights were third in the Pacific, 4 points up on Los Angeles, who was sitting outside of a playoff spot. There was a real risk at this team missing the playoffs. That was a real thing. Now, the rest, yeah, it was a bit of a, it wasn't just a pillow fight in the Pacific. Even just getting into the playoffs in the wild card spots was a bit of a pillow fight as well. But this was the stats for Vegas on the day that Cassidy got fired. Their power play was 4th. Their penalty kill was 6th. Both obviously very good. 15th in goals scored per game, 19th in goals against per game. At home, they were 16, 12, and 9. And on the road, they were 16, 14, and 7. If you include those OT losses or shootout losses as normal losses, that is well below 500 in both categories, home and away. And that was really this season for the Golden Knights. Just not very overwhelming, not very inspiring. You just like the players that they had, the talent they had, the experience they had. This was not a situation of Vegas coasting and just saving their energy to get to the playoffs and then boom, they'll make a run. This was not that. They were not a very well polished, well oiled machine all season long. When Tortorella took over, they were 7-0-1 in their last. That's a pretty common known fact now. Carter Hart has only lost 4 games under Tortorella, and all 4 have been in the playoffs. And what's interesting is that, you know, I remember watching the series against Utah and watching the first 2 games against Anaheim. And they were very much, and again, if you have watched me either on here or other platforms, you've heard me say this before. This team, they were just playing with fire, man. Whether it was against Utah in the first round, multiple comebacks in the third period, squeaking through in overtime. They've scored 4 shorthanded goals all postseason. They've only allowed 6 goals while on the penalty kill, and they've scored 4. So they basically it's a wash. But that's a pretty risky way to operate. Obviously wanted and needed, but risky nonetheless. Carter Hart played okay in that first round, but again, Utah heading into game 5 or game 6, Utah could have easily been up 3-2 in that series. Easily. But they weren't. Vegas was, and their best game of that series was game 6. And they ran Utah out of the building, won very comfortably. I think it was 5-1, 5-2, something like that. And they won the game. Then against Anaheim, they were outplayed for games 1 and 2. And they were lucky to be going back to California tied 1-1, quite frankly. I think it was the first game of it was the second game. Anaheim won it 3-1, but Vegas took 8 penalty minutes in the first 10 minutes of the hockey game. And there was just their penalty kill was very good in that series. But it just felt like Anaheim was the better team. They were the better team in those first 2 games. And in my opinion, Vegas was lucky to find themselves tied 1-1 going to the Honda Center. And that game 3, and to me, and again, this is my opinion. This is me watching. This isn't me in the dressing room or on the bench, or I don't know anything. But in my opinion, based on just what I'm watching, this is when everything shifted for me when it came to Vegas. Because I didn't like what they kind of brought to the table against Utah. I picked Anaheim to beat the Golden Knights. Just everything that we saw in the regular season, plus what we saw against Utah, it just didn't mesh for me. And I really liked what Anaheim was doing. And I thought that they were going to win the series. Game 3, Vegas wins 6-2. They dominate. Best game of the postseason. Marner with the hat trick, the 4 points. They look phenomenal. Now they lose the next game and they win against Anaheim in comeback fashion in overtime. I think comeback fashion. Regardless, in overtime. So again, going into game 6, they could have been down 3-2. But they weren't. And that game 3 to me was such a dominating game and such a, I don't know. It just felt like Vegas was saying, okay, we're here now. And even though they lost the next game 4-3, even though they had to come back and win in overtime in game 5, that game 3 to me kind of made me think, okay, this is something's different here. Something's changed here. And just like against Utah, that win in game 6 against Anaheim was there was no doubt. Again, I think it was 5-1 or something. That game was over quite early. And again, it was just this statement of we put ourselves in position to close out this series. We're closing out this series. And they did it. And heading into against Colorado, heading into the conference final, I really very strongly felt that they had to win game 1. They had to. Because to me, against Utah, playing with fire, they found a way to get the job done, but it was very touch and go. Against Anaheim, they were lucky to be tied 1-1. They very easily could have been down 3-2 going into game 6. They found a way to win, playing with fire. You cannot play with fire against this Colorado Avalanche team. You can't. And they didn't. They won game 1 fairly convincingly, and they never looked back. And there were moments in there, the overtime game, in game 3, like we already talked about, Colorado jumps up to the 3-0 lead. They just found ways to win. And to me, like I said, it's just been an evolution. When I look at Colorado heading into this series, there was no evolution. It wasn't this trajectory like we just talked about. They were the best team from the beginning of the season to the beginning of the conference finals. They were the best team from pillar to post, the best team. They handled their business against the Kings, handled their business against the Wild. Very little adversity. There were moments, I suppose, but they were just the best. And they got to the conference final. It's what I worry about right now with Carolina, and we're talking about Carolina in a minute. It's what worried me about Carolina heading into this series against Montreal. So far, again, we'll talk about it. But for Carolina as well, there's no trajectory, there's no evolution, there's no growth. It's just boom, we're good, and this is where we expect to be. And for Vegas, it just hasn't been that way. It's been this steady process of figuring it out. And now here we are. And they figured it out. And they dominated the Colorado Avalanche in 4 games. This series, to me, again, I'm sure the players feel differently. I'm sure behind the bench, they feel differently. In the locker room, they feel differently. To me, it wasn't even really close. And I'm just so impressed with how they took apart that team, regardless of who's healthy, who's not. I just think that the way that they handled their business was just extremely impressive and extremely professional. And for all of you people out there, including some very respectable names and people that I rely on for information, like Elliot Friedman, like I'm not coming at Friedman. I just because obviously he's one of the best in the business. I just think for people saying, I hear this all over, I'm not shocked Vegas won, but I'm shocked they swept. I'll say it. I will say it for all of us that I am shocked that Vegas won this series. I am. Obviously, I'm more shocked that they swept, clearly, but I am shocked that they won this series. I am. I didn't, and I watched every minute of Vegas in this postseason. I am shocked that they won this series, but good on them. They get a well deserved break after an up and down first two rounds, physical Western Conference final. Um, it's yeah, well deserved break. Um, any further notes on this series? I think like the last thing that I'll say, and I think this is more of a thing that we'll talk about when we preview the Stanley Cup final, is that I'm really impressed in with the way in which this team has been scoring. And I don't necessarily mean volume, but I mean who has been scoring. And it's been everyone. It's been everyone. I think that's where I'm the most like right now. Okay, let's say heading into the series against Montreal, that second line for Carolina was just creating all of the offense, all of it. Um, and Zach Martin, who is at these games, excuse me, who is at these games in the press box, he was saying the same thing, that the first line of Carolina, they were playing extremely well defensively, but you were getting very little offense from them. Vegas, everyone that scored for them in the regular season has scored for them in the postseason. Dorofeev led the team in goals this year in the regular season with 37, and he has 10 this season. Brett Howden did not play a lot due to injury, but in the regular season, I mean, but he has 10 goals. They had 5 players who scored 23 goals or more, and in total, they had 9 players who scored double-digit goals during the regular season. It was very much offense by committee, and that's what it's been in this postseason, and everyone's done it. Like I said, Brett Howden, Dorofeev, they both have 10 goals. Marner has 7. Stone and Barbashev both have 5. Thomas Hertl now has 3. There's only 2 forwards on Vegas who have played in this postseason who haven't scored, and that is Sod, and I think Smith is the other one, Riley Smith. I believe. I could be wrong about that, and that's fine. But only 2 forwards that have laced it up for Vegas this postseason that have not scored. And that's just, to me, very impressive that like everyone that they've relied on has brought to the table what they have needed to. Even Jack Eichel, he's only scored 2 goals. He scored a massive goal. Was it game 3 or game 2? Massive goal to get his team on the comeback. He has a million assists or whatever. I'm very impressed with just how this team has just bought in. Right? They've just bought in. Everyone is doing what they need to do in all levels, whether it's offensively, defensively, special teams, Carter Hart again. And you know, I'll I'll just say this too. There's a lot of conversation around Carter Hart right now with everything. Same with Brett Howden as well. Um, a lot with regards to the situation, why they were out, or why Hart was out specifically. And I'm talking about what's on the ice. You can call that right or wrong. You're welcome to feel how you feel about it. About me, like about how I choose to approach this. Um, the court ruled what the court ruled, and I'm not here. I'm not smart enough to talk about that stuff. Okay, I'm talking about what is on the ice. And so that's what it is. So if that, I've had a couple messages, a couple of people kind of reach out and share their thoughts, and I'm just gonna say that. Um, so yeah, that is what it is. But um, yeah, I'm very impressed with how everyone has just bought in. And like I said, it has been a process. It has been an evolution. And that is why heading into the cup final, I think Carolina will be the favorites. I think Carolina should be the favorites. I think that they're pretty even teams now that we're at this point. However, I think that the way that this postseason has gone is better for Vegas. It's just better for Vegas to be not that good, but win a series, just okay and win a series, to very good and sweep the best team in the NHL to go to the cup final. I just trust that process more than sweep. What is this series going to be over in 5? We'll talk about that next. But I'm really curious on this. The way that this has gone for Vegas. I'm just very impressed, and I'm impressed with the trajectory, the evolution of it all. It's a fascinating story to me. And we'll see June 2nd or June 4th is when the Stanley Cup final will start, and we have lots of time to talk about that. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk about the Montreal Canadiens and the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the show. Once again, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Promo code SPORTS10 to get 10% off whatever sports card you want, including any sales items at FirstRoundCollectibles.com. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, F1. You want it, they got it. FirstRoundCollectibles.com. Promo code SPORTS10. Total Apex Sports, Total Apex Media. I am not live on Total Apex Sports on X today, but they are a huge supporter of the show. Whether it's sporting news, betting, DFS, regular fantasy, whatever it is. Again, hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, World Cup's coming up, cricket, F1, golf, tennis. They have you covered. Total Apex Sports, Total Apex Media. All right. We'll wrap up the show with this. I don't got a ton on this. This is the series that I am kind of, this is where I start to think about the playoff format. And I'm not going to get lost in the weeds here, or maybe I will. I haven't decided. Maybe a different podcast I will when we're waiting for the cup final. I'll talk about it. But game 1, Montreal just slaps Carolina in the face. Backhanded, even, if you want to say it like that. And Carolina basically shocked at how they played, couldn't believe it. Everyone talking about Slavin, never seen this guy play like that. Well, they have, I wouldn't say that they have dominated since, but they have corrected the issues since. And yesterday, now, 2 overtime victories, right? Both of them. And so, yeah, people saying that the Canadians are 2 shots away from being up 3-0. That's fine. Overtime against Carolina, even in that third period in game 2, but overtime in game 3 or game 3, and that whole game yesterday was just domination from Carolina. And I really thought that this would be a series, and it still might, who knows. But I think that you are now watching, game 1, you had a team who sat for like what, a week and a half. You had a team in Montreal that was coming off of the adrenaline of a game 7. They're in, game mode, just play. Here we go into the conference finals. No rest. Let's just get after it. They had a couple days rest. They took advantage of Carolina's, legs just hanging out for almost 2 weeks. They took advantage of it, pounced on them, won very comfortably, and then since then, now Carolina's the better team, but even besides that, since then we have seen just the rest of a better team in Carolina versus the exhaustion of a Montreal team that has just battled 7-game series, right? Like, to me, this is where the rest, like that whole conversation of rest versus rust, I think this is real. This is my opinion. What do I know? Probably nothing. I just really feel like that first game was Montreal still riding high, Carolina sitting around for almost 2 weeks. They get slapped in the mouth. They wake up and they take advantage of an exhausted team that has been through the ringer. And now Carolina, I would be, as much as like, I don't really know how to word this properly. Like, it could Carolina win, or sorry, could Montreal win tomorrow night? Sure. Could they win at the Bell Center in game 6? Sure. I kind of expect Carolina to take care of business tomorrow at home. I do. I would love to see Montreal do it. I'd love to see them come back and make this a series. I want to watch more hockey, man. Because regardless, like, tomorrow's the 29th. So regardless, we got to wait till the 2nd. So you might as well just play more hockey. If I have to wait until, what is it, Tuesday? If I have to wait till Tuesday to watch another game, you might as well just keep playing. And make a series of it. But I'm just really impressed with how Carolina just shook off the cobwebs, flush game 1 down the toilet, find a way to win. Like, that game 2 and 3 very much was right there for the taking for Montreal. But you're just seeing a a professional team. You're seeing a veteran team. You're seeing a team that has been there, done that, been through the fire, been through the testing. I think to counter what I said before the break there about Vegas going through adversity and going through a trajectory where Carolina really hasn't had to deal with anything. I think the only counter to that I would say is that this is their third conference final in 4 years. That's adversity. Like maybe not this season, but they've had adversity over the years when it comes to this point of the postseason. So, yeah, it's tough. Carolina, like Montreal, just doesn't have an answer right now, and Dobish is playing out of his mind. I think this team is stacked for the long haul. I think this team, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come. But it just feels like it's over. It feels like it's Carolina's time. Yeah, it feels like we're going to get a Carolina Vegas series. And yeah, very impressed with Vegas. Carolina's just doing what they should be doing, what they're expected to do. But they fall flat this time of year, time after time. And right now, they seem to be correcting that path. Okay. Thank you to everybody again, whether live on X, on YouTube, or on Spotify. Appreciate it so much. All that cliche business of like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. I appreciate it so much. TikTok, find me on there at Sauter on Sports. Of course, at Sauter on Sports on Twitter as well. The S.O.S Podcast Network on YouTube. Again, article about Vegas came out today. There'll be some stuff coming out on the weekend about the Maple Leafs, what they can learn from these teams that are in the Final Four as they begin this new roster construction moving forward. I have an article coming out again over the weekend on the Dallas Stars. What do they really need to change heading into next season, if anything, besides sign Jason Robertson? So yeah, lots of stuff coming out on that. When the Stanley Cup final is on, we will get back to the MLB show. We will get back with my buddy Tom Brown. We will get back to the NFL show with Java Joe. He will be back talking, getting ready for the summer. We will get into other things, the NFL show, the MLB show. Maybe we'll throw some NBA in there. Maybe we'll see. I do have quite a few Knicks fans in my life, so maybe we'll have them on and we'll talk about the NBA. With the NHL, it's been hard for me to kind of juggle all of those sports, but we will get back into other things as the playoffs wrap up here and the summer commences. All right. Total Apex Sports, Total Apex Media, FirstRoundCollectibles.com, promo code SPORTS10. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with me. Enjoy your weekends. We'll be back. I don't know when, but until then, see you next time.